Stop Now, a social experiment enterprise.
Welcome to another episode of Stop Now. I'm your host, Melissa, and we have JK over here today.
Yeah, Melissa, nice to meet you back. I hope Nate will also join. And we have a new team member joining our Stop Now Foundation. And we have more people interested in our talk shows and they want to volunteer and participate. And here we go. Why don't you introduce yourself?
Hi, Malaysia. Hi, JK. Yeah, I'm Siva. I'm from India, Tamil Nadu, Chennai.
Okay,
And
good. Thank you. Welcome aboard. Melissa, you have any questions? Leo's like our guest is also joining.
hi.
Hey, hello.
How
Hi,
are
Melissa.
Uh,
Siva, nice to meet you.
yeah, hi.
Just to give you an update on that, Leon, within a month, right? Of I believe a month ago we did, right?
you? Yes.
With you, and we have grown in leaps and bounds. Many people have started
Oh, wonderful.
volunteering, and I should give you the credit for that. Like other team members are joining, and they also want to take part in our show and ask more questions to you. That's nice.
Mhm.
And thank you so much for accepting our invitation again to do part 2. And this is mainly for Melissa.
Sure, yeah.
Melissa was
Good.
great. Like she said, like, oh, I'm going to miss him. Like, and
well, here I am.
Yes.
Seems like an exciting time for your team.
Yeah, I was so disappointed that I had to miss that episode. I was like, oh man, you got to get him back on the show. So welcome and thank you for coming back again.
Absolutely, yes.
So, I am like very big on mental health, and over the past, I don't know, year or so, like I've become more aware of, different forms of, different disorders or different treatments and all things like that. So
Okay.
I'm just very excited for you to be here. And one of the things that have been big, I know, especially like in the Black community, mental health is like, people try to stay away from that. Like I know in the
Yes.
previous episode with you and Steve, he was mentioning that sometimes when people say mental, they think of it, like a bad thing. So that's also how it is on in my community. It's gotten
Yes.
better, especially since COVID. But do you see that a lot with, other communities or like?
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of different communities. I did a research project on, so yes, yeah, like definitely East Asian communities, it is a thing, and across different communities, mental health, there is certainly a stigma about it.
Why do you think, that's the thing? Like growing up, you weren't really allowed to talk about certain things. So like if, I even was having some sort of a mental breakdown or, I was going through something, I had some crazy anxiety, that was something that we made sure we kept in the house. And even then it's like limited conversation that you can have about that. Why do you think that that's even, a thing in the first place?
Yes, well, there certainly are cultural factors involved in that. And I think actually like all communities, they do have ways to be able to address mental health, like in their own kind of way. So like in many older societies, for instance, and even societies that continue to exist today, like there's the use of shamanism, right? There's also like, I think there's ways that cultures outside of the West do handle mental health in a very helpful and productive way, and that that I think the West has just gotten to kind of discover, such as like the importance of the social group and the community involved in mental health. I think especially now, like given how people are living in terms of nuclear families, that can be difficult. It's great to have a nuclear family, but like the notion of extended families, I think like cultures outside the West, they still have that kind of notion. too, and also like ways of treating like from like spiritual standpoint, for instance, or like philosophy, like there's Eastern philosophy and how it works with mental. It's not officially called like mental health, right? But these are ways that are helpful, and they're also psychosomatic. So they're involved in knowing how the body is used or is helpful in terms of mental health. Like if you're in touch with your body and aware, it's helpful. So I think cultures outside the West, they know about the benefits of mental health, but it's not called mental health.
Thank you for that. So, like, tell us more about your meetup group therapy. Before that, like, welcome, Nate. You're always late.
What's going on, everybody?
Hi, Nate.
Hey, Melissa, it's been a while.
Hi, Nate.
How you
Good to
doing,
see you again.
Leon? Good to talk to you again, my friend.
Yeah, and we have our volunteer as well. You got
Hi,
him
Nate.
introduced.
Hey.
He was joined. He's the guinea pig, and we are doing a social experiment. And hopefully, Shiva, you can also ask any questions to our special guest. And
Yes,
he's
yeah.
an expert, right? And
Yes, I will.
so you can talk about maybe you can talk like me and Nate in the social experiment. Welcome everyone. Let's go with that. Like, why don't you kickstart on that, Leon? Tell us more about your group therapy on the meetup.
Yeah, the group.
Sorry, I missed a couple of that. Like, I was not able to participate.
Oh, that's totally fine. So like when it comes to the groups, I've started them for quite a while. Actually, I had some version of doing group therapy, maybe like just like a few years back, and then running group therapy, and it has changed form since then. So I'm always looking to improve, looking to get better, and I'm become very happy with the format that it has become. And I think one pivotal changing point was when it moved from in person to online. So I thought like, oh, I can't really do my groups anymore because they're all in person. But now they're online. So because of the pandemic situation, and actually that was such a remarkable turning point because, well, people were united because of what's going on in terms of their struggles, first of all. And second of all, I had a broader reach of people that I got to work with, not just people who are local to New York City, but there's people from different states there. There's like a larger group, and in person, honestly, like it was in a public place, it was kind of noisy. So you think that like Zoom calls can sometimes be noisy, but it's actually much better.
Sounds great. So do you have like a specific, set of people that are able to come with age range, or like who is able to join the group?
Yeah, well, it's pretty diverse. That's what I like about living in New York City. So people, many different ethnic backgrounds and many social economic backgrounds too, because my groups are free too, as well. And like different ages, like people there who are 60, 70, and down to like in their 20s. So like, yeah, there's quite a range of people that show up. I've advertised this to a social anxiety group. Okay. So there's a large contingency that is people with social anxiety, but people come in, they could have like officially like a diagnosis of mental health issue or not. So I think all people benefit from learning mental health knowledge.
Well, obviously everybody's different, Leon, but is there, maybe a common theme of sort of some of the issues people want to talk about, particularly over the past year or so? Like, is there one issue more so than any that people want to deal with?
I wonder what you're talking about. There's the pandemic. Yes, that people definitely I feel like even like my clientele, who I see individually, there is this thing where when there's a pandemic, people's issues, difficulties, problems start to show up in the forefront. So it's in the background of their mind, but they find some way to kind of cope with it just by going out and about. Like even just like going to work physically is helpful, right? But on the other hand, the flip side of that is that they may be just keeping their symptoms at bay, right? But there's some underlying issue they have not addressed. So actually, this is a time, I think this is a general time for people to kind of sit back and reflect and to understand the core of what issues they want to face.
Okay, so I know, like you said, there's a lot of people that had, some kind of anxiety, or they had some kind of issue that they just didn't start to deal with until, COVID. I am definitely one of those people. And, I've noticed not just with me, but with other people that, I always encourage people, try therapy, even if it doesn't work out, just try it. Okay. See how it goes, and maybe try different therapists. And I've had people that'll say, well, why? Or they have a hard time going, not because they don't want to, because they feel like they're not going to be accepted by their peers or their family members. They're nervous about how people are going to react. And I do have some family members that are like, they're going to therapy. You are crazy. So, is there something that you guys talk about with that? Like how to approach that, with different backlash that people get for seeking out help?
Yes, I think the most important thing is to be able to educate people about like the purpose of mental health, that mental health is for everyone, that there's clients who show up which they don't necessarily meet like a specific clinical diagnosis, but it's like they find something helpful. And actually, like a lot of the things you learn from mental health, you find in life coaching as well. So a lot of what life coaches do, a lot of the skills are derived from psychotherapy. So these are skills that everyone could use, that everyone can benefit. Takes a lot of courage to be able to be vulnerable like that and be able to explore how your mental health is affecting you.
That is true. That's something that people don't realize, that yes, it does take a lot of courage to be able to, sit with somebody that you don't know and be open and let them know what's happening. So It is something that I hope over time people become more aware of their own. And there's so many people that suppress different things, and they're like, okay, you're going to, a group therapy session, but I'm fine. And they don't realize how it's really affecting so many different areas of their life. But
absolutely, yes. Yes.
To jump on here, Melissa, this is your specialty. Not to say like Leon is the expert on this as a psychotherapist. Shiva, if you have questions, you can put it on chat as well. On that note, I just want to ask you, Leon. Last time I loaded a bucket questions like all together, like I'm trying to organize my thoughts and ask simple questions. What do you think of psychedelics? Like say about the mushrooms, right? Mushrooms, chocolates, and LSD. Do you have any take on that?
Yeah. So right now, they've been doing research on these kind of substances, right? And basically, what's being found is like, well, first of all, the way society looks at these substances, it's really biased. It's really stigmatized, right? And actually, people like for thousands and thousands of years across many different cultures, they use different kinds of plant medicines to do some sort of healing. So it really harkens back to that. And if you actually do an analysis of the actual like the harm, these things are not not nearly as harmful as like alcohol and smoking, and you know those things are legalized. So it's like kind of like we got everything backwards, right? And I'm not going to be like a Pollyanna about the use of psychedelics either. I mean, they could be pretty intense experiences for people, right? Not necessarily for everyone. And when people undergo such experiences, it could be really intensive. It could be a really intensive kind of experience, and it could be difficult for people. So, so I'm not saying, oh yeah, just go out and just like do psychedelics. Is remember to do the research behind it to come to an understanding about it, and also it's helpful to do it like if you could treat this like more as something that's like recreational, right? So the thing about a lot of these psychedelics is that they're not often not like addictive in a like a very they're not very like addictive compared to other substances. So like when you could use it, you could use this for it could be useful for the sake of insight, right? It doesn't mean that people don't become reliant on them. So even though, like for instance, LSD does not have like an immediate addictive effect, like you take it and you're not gonna like, oh, I'm gonna want to take it again like immediately, right? But we could be like becoming dependent on these things for like insight, right? Instead of relying on ourselves. So yeah, I think there's always like two ways of this, right? But I think it kind of goes back to this point, like what is mental health? I think mental health is something that actually goes back a long way. I think right now it's, more recently institutionalized in the West, right? And in kind of in the West, it's they're discovering a lot of the benefits of a lot of things that have been known many years ago across many cultures around the world, right? So like things like, so when you mentioned about psychedelics, like things of that nature, it harkens back to the idea of like plant medicine, how different tribal societies in the past, how they use plant medicine when it comes to healing.
And I guess, maybe kind of piggybacking off of that subject, Leon, I think something that I've noticed, at least amongst my friend group over the past year, is different coping mechanisms, and some healthy, some not so healthy. Particularly when you talk about the use of substances like alcohol or marijuana or cigarettes, and so, or even something like caffeine. Just whatever I can do to get through this particular day. What have you found in terms of like the link between like anxiety and some of these coping mechanisms that people kind of use, particularly going through what everybody's gone through this past year?
Anxiety and these kind of coping mechanisms?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like when it comes to anxiety, people are like, especially these days, they do feel a lot of anxiety. And I think there's a way that society is set up that kind of could exacerbate how much anxiety that we are feeling, and we're trying to find some ways to cope. So a way to look at it is like every day we're trying to like manage our own behavior, right? We're each of us are kind of like striving towards certain kinds of goals in our lives, or striving towards meeting some sort of obligations or duties, and there's nothing inherently wrong with this in itself. It could be beneficial, right? But it could be a lot of pressure. So when it's a lot of pressure, then people start to they may tap into a side of themselves which becomes more impulsive, right? There's ways that they want to relieve the pressures of the manager's side of themselves. So it's really like having that kind of balance, because sometimes we could assume that the manager is a good thing, and it's not a bad thing, right? Everything has its plus and minuses. And the thing is, like when we have these impulsive behaviors, instead of saying, wow, this is really bad, this is really terrible, like kind of stigmatize it, is to understand where they're coming from, right? That maybe they're trying to make up for aspects that sometimes like the manager kind of takes, is kind of over controlling. The inner manager starts to become over controlling, and the impulsive behaviors is just a symptom of that, a way to relieve it.
Melissa, I know you want to ask a question. So before that, I just want to, it's an audience request. Like if we are doing a live, probably we might have got that questions in chat. Shiva wants to ask this question. Like you can ask that, Shiva, or I can jump in. How can it change my life if I get your therapy? That's what, is that right? Yeah.
Yeah, so how can it change your life? Well, the thing is, I don't want to make it seem like if you see any like therapist or you see any life coach, it's going to be like a panacea, right? Then it's kind of like almost like projecting qualities on the other person, for instance, that, oh, this person's going to save me, going to change my life, right? So I want to emphasize this is when it comes to therapy, it's a collaboration between two people. But like, you know, it's also good to find a therapist who works well with you too, right? So like for me, I'm going to have like certain style to my therapy, and I want to be open with you and say like, you know, this is my style, and I'll try to find a way to adapt to work with you. Like I want to get a core understanding of who you are, and then see like how I could help you. But I also want to be honest and say, you know, maybe I want you to find this best style for you. So if you, so don't like think that I'm going to be the one who's going to necessarily do that, right? So, yeah. So yeah, my idea is to be honest and say like, you know, I'm going to, I could also refer you to people who are experts in the area that you may need help with.
Yeah, so we can do a rapid round. Melissa, you can shoot as many questions. Leon is ready for that.
No, I do say that like therapist isn't like a one size fits all. Like I had a couple, but I just found one that is just right for me. So that's a very good point there. But what about like religion and therapy? I know on so many different levels, religious people sometimes say you don't even need therapy, you know, because whoever it is their God is, or whoever, you know, they praise and all that, they're going to fix your, you know, mental health or whatever you may be going through. So how do you deal with that? Or what do you say to that? Because I hear that a lot.
Yeah, so like from a spiritual standpoint, even it's a spiritual thing to want to take care of yourself. Like there's a reason why we wear seatbelts, we eat healthy, we exercise. Like the higher power is not going to come down and just like take care of all that stuff for you, right? So it's like and also like the idea like there's a purpose behind everything. So like therapists have their own purpose, and mental health has its own place, right? So religion is and spirituality is not only found among religious institutions, for instance, like just because like religion doesn't only just occur in church and not outside of church. There's also the other 6 days of the week, right? So like, and there's a saying like being like a monk or a pastor, that is one form of spiritual experience, but also like being homeless and being that's actually a different spiritual experience. Everyone has their own spiritual experience. So it's not like spirituality is only within a specific building, right? It's outside of it, in everything that we do.
Melissa, I think you are trying to provoke me, right? So you are making me to ask that question. And thank you for that, Melissa, because they know that, like Leon, I'm an atheist, right? So I don't give that kind of crap. I don't take that crap. Spirituality, religion, God, all that is nonsense for me. So what is your take for people like that who come to your therapy? Like, so do they even come? Like,
well, you know, when it comes to like therapy, it's an ethical principle of therapists to work with people with different backgrounds, right? To really honor their beliefs. So like, I think like atheists, for instance, I don't like, not all of them like the word spiritual, but like some of them, like, I guess it's not necessarily like spiritual, but some sort of sense of honoring life, honoring our connection with others. And this is essential to all people. So when I talk about spirituality, that's really what I mean at the core of it as well. Like, so like when it comes to mental health, it's kind of an experience to kind of talk about the meaning of life, or talk about like our connection with others, right? I believe everybody has their way of doing that, right? Whether they're religious or not, or they're spiritual or not.
Yeah, I remember you saying that, right? So to point to the Shiva's question, right? How you can fix my life, right? So there is no fix, right? As you mentioned, like jokingly in the last part, okay, in the next 5 minutes, I'm going to, all your problems will disappear after I talk. Something like that.
They will, though. In about 5 minutes, all your problems will disappear. There's something I'm going to say in the next 5 minutes, all the problems are going to disappear.
So for me, like as an atheist also, right, I don't want to label myself and identify with that, but something wrong going on in my brain. So that's why, like, I feel like my thoughts, my thinking is not right. I'm endangering myself. And like, I want, just like taking a medicine for a cold or a cough, something like that. If I find my life is in trouble and I am creating problem for others and myself, and everybody says that like you need some mental health, and I think, okay, fine, let me go and try it out. Is that the right approach, or what kind of clients do you get? And it's traumatizing for me to read even the newses, right? A 16-year black girl, right, with a knife, she was shot by the police. That is a tragedy. I don't know how that, even with the Asian American hate crimes that is going around, right? It's been there for a long. So many things are there. Like, how do we identify that, like, we are not mentally healthy? How do we assess that?
Okay, can you clarify your question?
I mean, like each one of us here, right? So Melissa, Nate, and Shiva, and even myself, how do we know that like we are mentally healthy? Can you call any one of us as mentals?
How do I determine people are mentally healthy? Is that your question?
Yes, you can put it that way.
Yeah, well, I think like the idea of like whether someone's mentally healthy or not, that's like, it's kind of categorical in a way, right? So basically everyone has their issues in a way, right? But also like that is stigmatizing. So I feel like it's part of the human condition that we work through challenges, right? And the challenges themselves are, they both have their positives and negatives, right? We all like, I feel like people here could identify with like finding themselves to a really difficult experience in their life somehow. So like, I think that's part of the stigma with mental health is like we're dealing with issues or problems. I think what we're working with is as therapists, we're working with the human condition, right? How do people find meaning in their lives? And I don't think that people who show up to the therapy office, they're necessarily more sick than people who are outside of the therapy office. That actually like, but those who show up in the therapy office, they may have like an awareness of just like how helpful psychotherapists can be, right? And I think that's also a matter like how well we could get the message out there that mental health care is beneficial for people.
I think that is one positive that we can take from, everything that's going on recently, is that I do think more people are aware of mental health, and more people, to Melissa's point, like I feel like people are seeking out answers and seeking out solutions in a way that maybe 2 years ago we weren't. So is that something that you're seeing, Leon, that people are more invested in taking care of themselves in terms of their mental health?
Yeah, it's definitely a generational difference. Like it's actually right now it is pretty popular among younger generations to be seeking mental health services, and not simply because there's more people have more problems. I think it's just this greater awareness, and also like the idea that it's beneficial to try to meet your mental health needs, like to be able to get to the core of a deeper understanding of yourself, and to work there. And that actually, this is not just simply about solving a problem, but it's about becoming a better person. Like how, like people showing up to therapy to really get an understanding of themselves, and really see like how can they become like the best version of themselves.
So do you ever deal with people that just say, I'm fine, maybe they were sent, like court mandated, they have to be there, and they're like, there's absolutely nothing wrong with me, you can't tell me nothing. Like, how would you deal with that?
Yeah, I've worked with mandated clients before, and what I find is that when you really try to understand where they're coming from, right? You find they're just like everyone else, and they have their own ways of dealing with issues, right? And theirs is to be outside of the system. But like people inside the system, they're not necessarily like more healthy, right? They have their own issues. Actually, like maybe people outside the system, they found a clever way around it. They found a clever way, and that's how they that's how they work. And when you can really understand that kind of mindset, like where they're coming from, they really open up. And when they open up, they really see the benefits of what you're doing, because people they don't take the time to understand them, and people are always trying to like basically like discipline them or something, or tell them that what they're doing, what they're doing is wrong all the time. Like, so I'm not like saying like, I'm not saying how people act, like the actions they chose are necessarily right, but how they're trying to meet the need is like there's a way they're trying to meet the need, which for them that's beneficial for them, and we can understand like where they're coming from, their mindset, and how they chose the life they've chosen. Or like people who are not into mental health, if you could understand them and their perspective, then they become interested in what you're doing, because you're willing to be as open with them and be that understanding with them. And so they reciprocate that.
A quick observation, Leon. You just had the same thing. You got a beautiful plant over there, and it has the flower has blossomed in that. I can notice that in the observation. And from Nate,
some of the flowers on the other side we can't see, or they're kind of dying, but
it's a circle of life.
It's a circle of life behind me.
Yeah. Nate, are you all right? Like I feel like he's been doing a lot of radio shows, so his throat is not well, it seems.
Yes, I need some lemon tea.
Okay, I can't get hold of Melissa's background. She keeps changing the location. And
ever since that fire, Steve, I'm all over the place.
Yes, Shiva is new, so he might be a little bit shy to ask question. I don't want to threaten him, because we had this experience, like people from India, like, and one of the volunteer, like Ashwak, you guys remember, and he joined, and he dropped out saying that, oh, I don't understand the American accent, and I don't know what you guys talk. Particularly when we provoke him on religion and sex. Some people get threatened. So my question on that, Leon, already I made a judgment, right? So you are a young guy, like in 20s, you don't look like a psychotherapist, and being an Asian, I don't know what origin, like, I don't know your experience as well, right? Some might have told you this on the street, like go back to your country, or those kind of nasty things. And how do you deal with those kind of professional traumas you face?
Like just how people would judge me based on my background. Yeah, so like I think like people, they do have judgments. They have some ideas straight off the bat, right? And that's true. Like we have these judgments of everyone, right? There's some idea that we form in our head when we see people, right? I think when it comes to therapy, after that initial like look, right? When you start to engage with them, that stuff starts to fade away. It doesn't go away, but that initial impression starts to fade away, because what they're dealing with is your energy, right? And they see someone who is understanding and wanting to care and hear non-judgmentally the core of the issues presented to them. So they did research like if people from different ethnicities, like you have a therapist of a different ethnicity, right? So you might initially choose a therapist based on someone who's similar to your own, and there's nothing wrong with that piece. You want someone who could resonate with your experience, right? But like after that initial meet, the rest is completely determined based on the individual characteristics of the therapist, like whether that person stays or not. The research shows it really depends on the individual. Like, so that's what I have to say about that.
Something I was thinking about, Leon, is the kind of the idea of maybe recognizing and being aware of triggers or things that can set you off. And, for me, when you're talking about, kind of the way that people interact with people in the society, Tuesday, I was at work, and like, for whatever reason, I felt anxious, and I didn't know why. And it didn't click with me, until about 3 or 4 o'clock, Melissa. And I'm like, oh yeah, today's the day of the verdict for the Chauvin trial. And it's like, all day I was carrying this on my back, Leon, without knowing why. Like, I was feeling off. So is that something that we can get better at in terms of like recognizing what can kind of affect us mentally?
Yeah, I mean, things like that are like really tough to deal with. So like something that minorities face is this thing where there's these little things that they kind of pile on top of each other to cause stress, right? So maybe like sometimes like the actions of others could cause that, or things in the news, right? Because it is really stressful, and not any one of these things in isolation like causes us to kind of get exhausted, right? But it's really the accumulation of this stuff. And if people in general could be like aware of that, like to be kind of understand that in itself could provide some relief, to know that, that this does occur, right? So.
What was my question? Oh gosh, I had one. Because when you said psychedelic, it made me start to think about medicine. And, different people are on different medications, and then they still seek therapy. Some people are like, well, why do you have to go to therapy or, have any group counseling if you take this medication? Like, pick one. Do you have any way of dealing with that with some people? Do you find that common at all?
So when it comes to medication, so there's a lot of camps regards to whether people should have medication or not have medication, right? And then they get into a lot of like philosophical debate about it. What I care most is about the client's experience. And talking with people, what I understand is like there's people who have benefited from it, and that like when they took medication, that has really made a difference in their life, kind of kept them above board. and other people who have not, right? And of course, generally there is an issue with medication in the country in terms of like overprescription, right? Or the idea that that is what's going to solve the core issues, just to take care of the organic problem, but not like the aspect of like human people are people and we have our own individual stories, and being able to get to the core of that story is the most important thing. Like the medication is not going to do that for you. It may help us to get to a certain level where we're able to start to be able to manage our symptoms in such a way so that then we could start to do that work on our own individual story.
Do you think it's possible that people could just not take the medicine at some point in time? You know, they work on themselves and that they're going up to, you know, some type of counseling and find different coping mechanisms. Like,
absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think that's true. On the other hand, it's like it's important to get outside help to kind of take a look at it. Like for instance, I had problems with depression in the past. So I was really clinically depressed for two years. And when I felt like I was getting better, it's like, I'm just gonna like not just go, I'm just gonna go off of medication, right? And then the thing is actually that did not go well. that didn't go over well. So I think like it's good to kind of, yes, you could talk about, definitely talk about how you want to handle medication, and it's ultimately up to you because you're the one who's deciding on your own health, right? But definitely seek outside advice about that.
Leon, quick thing. I still remember watching your TED talk, right? So you look like a schoolboy and putting your tie and trying to control your emotions and shaking hands. It was like really nice. Like I really enjoyed like and how you transformed and reached to this level. Can you enlighten like how people have that fear and shyness, and I don't want to name any medical conditions, but then what goes through in your head on that, and how did you recover from that?
The thing is, it's like a journey. So when it comes to our like mental health, it is a journey, and at the same time, I don't want us to all think about like it's all about getting to that end point, right? Because whatever issues that we face in our lives, I feel like they're always like a part of us in a way, and we might think, oh, that is problematic. Why can't I just like overcome this? It's not like we overcome it. It's not that we put it away. It's that we actually find the place for it in our lives. And if it's when we find a place for it in our lives, that means we're not resistant to it anymore. And then that's ultimately how we serve other people, that wherever area in our lives we felt like we've lacked, we've had challenges in, that's an area in which we heal others. Everything that people are doing is basically in that regards, because for instance, like when it comes to social anxiety, all that was on my head was about human connection. How can I, first of all, start off with like, how can I be less lonely, right? And then it became about like, how can I interact with others, and became about human connection. And it evolved. So I thought like, actually, this is more about my social anxiety. It's about like, in general, in today's society, we lack human connection, right? So how can we bring this human connection to the fore? So I think really like everyone's problems or difficulties that they face, yes, they're really tough. And I don't want to negate how tough it is. On the other hand, that's how you find your healing for others.
When you look at your own TED Talk video, do you laugh at it?
I find it amusing. Like I just like when I watch it, is like some people thought like when I did that TEDx talk, like they're looking at it and says, you look like you're like really tense or something like that. Like on of course, like I was actually nervous, right? So like I find it amusing in that way. Like and I remember when I was on stage during the TEDx talk, I was thinking, first of all, I had like a script in my head about what I want to say, right? And that's actually like the worst thing to do when you're public speaking is to have a script in your head. And then, so I had a script and I was trying to follow it, but the thing is, I was so nervous that I couldn't remember it. So I went to like a backup script. So like I've developed my speech over time so that I added more and more material to it, but I forgot all the recent material and went back to like the old material. So like, but I think it's, I still like enjoy that experience. I think like I like how, I like it for the fact that I put myself out there. Like I've faced my social anxiety and put myself out there. It's not like, not that I gave a great speech, but it's more like, wow, I really did that. Like that's something that I went through, and it didn't have to be perfect or anything like that. And but it's still a worthwhile experience. So I remember I have a friend who told me, whatever talent or skill you have, there's always somebody who's doing a fraction, who has that talent or skill of a fraction of the talent skill that you have, but they're making a difference with it. Like they're going out and they're just willing to get their stuff out there. So I thought that's I think the issue is like we're all like trying to find that perfection. We need to like do it the best, right? But it's more about like how we connect with others, like whether like what we have, the way I look at it is like I have a friend who feels like she needs to be like the best Zumba teacher ever, right? Needs to know all the skills, but I honestly, like her clients appreciate her because her steps are easier to follow, right? And something that you could just relax to. So, so that's really how I see purpose. It's not we're doing things perfectly, but we're just like finding a way to connect with people with it.
Absolutely. Thank you. And before we wrap up this, I will give a chance to everyone like to ask some questions, final questions. My tough questions, right? 2 cents for you. How does sex life impacts the mental health? Like, because is it like a midlife crisis that traumatizes? Because sex is an important part in our human evolution, right? As a human existence as such. So how does the sexuality affect? Does it affects differently for men and women or transgender? What is your answer for that?
Yeah, so when it comes to therapy involving sexual matters, I'm not like an expert in that. But I know, like just like with every area of life, it has its beauty, it has its wonder, right? And it is important, but not any one thing is important either, right? So if that one thing in our lives, like I think in our culture, we really emphasize like you need to have like a good sex life, right? Or you need to have like a partner, or you need to have like a good job, right? Something like that, that says that almost like they're treating these things like they're pillars, right? But honestly, like the reality of people's lives is that, you know, they may have good sex, they may have like a good relationship, right? Or they may not, or that stuff is kind of like behind them in a way, like they had it, but then it's like they don't have that a satisfying sexual relationship. And the thing is, like, I think life is just more diverse than that. Like life is more than like almost like treating certain aspects like a good career, a good sex life, like treating those things as pillars of like, and otherwise, like if you don't get these things right, then you know it's all over. It's definitely not true.
Well, see, you gave me a perfect segue right there, JK, because a good sex life can lead to kids if that is the intention. So, like when we talk about like mental health with these,
like
kids,
a bad sex life can lead to kids.
That is true. An average sex life can lead to kids. It's all connected. But when we talk about kids and mental health, I think that's something that, you know, a lot of people don't focus on. And, you know, when I talk to my nieces, particularly, over the last couple months, like they are more aware of what's going on in the world than I think people give them credit for. So when it comes to kids and mental health, when is too soon? Like, is there an age that, kids can start, talking to somebody or doing group therapy or things of that nature, Leon?
Wait, so the first question is like a certain age to have kids, or is it like
is there a certain like age for like when you should have kids engage with their mental health and maybe talk to a therapist?
Oh, I see.
Get into therapy and things of that nature.
Yeah, I mean, I think it starts from the beginning, but I also I don't take things too seriously either. I mean, I think there's like therapists who kind of like take their profession too seriously. So it's like they're like giving their kids, like as a parent, they're acting like almost like a therapist in a way to their own kids. And it's and I think like it's just like with anybody, like whether they're kids or they're not, like whether they're new to therapy or they're not, is like there's this room for like this self-discovery, self-understanding, right? So we don't need to be so like concerned, like, oh, does my kid have everything? Like, do they have like the proper mental health care, the proper like just like anything. Like kids also discover things on their own, and they also need to make mistakes too. And often in some ways, the lack of knowledge of mental health is what leads to an understanding of mental health, that you've kind of been burnt, right? Everyone has like touched the fire. Everyone has like, if we're trying to try to find some way to manage our kids' behavior from like very early on so that they don't make mistakes or they're like mentally perfect or healthy, that could be an issue too. Everyone needs to go through their own journey and their own difficulties. Yep. But I do agree, mental health, given what I said, I do agree that mental health is important. I think it could be incorporated into education. Like there could be a class on it, because what we're learning like in school, like we're learning science and English, and these are all good topics, right? But I would think like mental health is as essential as these things. Like we all have need to work with mental health. So I have a friend in India who has created curriculum introducing therapy mental health to kids. So it's part of the curriculum there, and it has really made a difference. It's making a difference in schools right now. So I think teaching people how to cope from an early age it can be a good thing.
I agree with that one. But it's been great to have you here, but we're gonna have to shut it down.
Melissa's been watching the clock again.
That's what I do.
That's why we put you in charge of watching the clock, because obviously I have issues with the time sometimes.
It's okay. I have 3 more hours.
Well,
are they billable hours? That's the question. Are they billable hours?
Oh, God. But it's been so nice to have you here. I'm glad that I was able to join as well, because I was definitely upset about the last time. But thank you so much for coming on and talking to us.
I'm so happy to be on the show. I'm so happy to meet you, Melissa, too. And I was looking forward to it. So they were mentioning last time, that you can come, and you're so like passionate about mental health. And anybody who's passionate about mental health, I want to meet them.
Oh, me too. I'm like, we got a connection here. Okay, but I can keep going.
Melissa, thank you. I asked her like to make the closing statement. So Leon, thank you so much, and we can make you a part of our team. Like we can make a series, and if you want, like we can do it regularly, and at least once in a month. And I hope to join your meetup group and take part. And maybe you can give some therapy sessions for us as well. I don't know whether I need it or not. Even young, as you mentioned, right? Young kids, like even in schools nowadays, they talk about that. I never knew about psychedelics or the chocolates that's available, or mushrooms. I never heard about those things. When my kids, like 13, 14, they talk about it and say a whole lot, I got surprised, like, how did they know those things? And they say, like, we talk way more than this about drugs and all in schools. So that's good. Like, I mean, at different age, like if you are aware of it, you don't end up in the wrong side of mental health. And just to give you everybody a chance, any final questions or anything, any comments you want to make before we close the segment?
This has been a really wonderful experience. I'm so happy to be here.
Nice to meet you all, and have a wonderful weekend.
Yes.
Hopefully see you all again.
Yeah, it's always great to have these meaningful conversations.
Yes. This has been great. Thank you, everyone. And Chevelle, hopefully next time you will hop on in here, but we're just breaking you in, so it's okay. It's fine.
you gotta get on the, you gotta get on the interstate. You don't just go out there all quick. You gotta ease on down the road.
Ease on. Right, don't start, Nate. I love that. Okay, but I'm gonna end things, and it's been a great show, and bye for now, everybody.
Stop Now, a social experiment enterprise. Stop, listen, share. Everyone can make a difference. We are on a mission. Everyone should do something greater in their lifetime. Change the future. Be a proud member. Join us to support, volunteer, and donate.